Good morning, everyone. Today's topic is going to be the mentally ill. Should they be? And that's why I put a question mark at the end of the topic. Because I'm not saying they should be, I'm just asking the question. Should people who have a serious mental illness be put into institutions, or what they used to call back in the day insane asylums? I do want to say before I get started that I don't have the answers. I am not a doctor or a healthcare provider. I am just a mom that is trying to figure this thing out. And so one day I might be on this channel saying, I think this should happen or I think that should happen. And then the next day I may have a whole different view of that because I am just researching and trying to do what is best for my loved one who is diagnosed with schizophrenia. And I just want the best for him. So yesterday we ended up going to the movies. We saw the movie Send Help. And then afterwards we went out to dinner. It was me, my husband, and my loved one with the mental illness. And we had a great time. We really did. But in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking, my husband and I, we are our loved ones we are his best friend. Not only are we his best friends, we are his only friend because he's very isolated. He doesn't have any friends. He had friends when he was in high school and a little bit after that. But now he has zero people that he can call his friend. And what I want most for him is to have friends and to live a normal life. So I don't have the answers. I am just trying to figure this thing out and do what is best for him. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's not what I want. It's not even what I do. It's not even what I think is best. At the end of the day, it's going to be his decision because I can't make him do anything. He's going to have to agree to do it. I can only make suggestions. And at the end of the day, he's going to have to decide what he wants to do. So also on another note, before I get started on today's topic, I just want to say I saw a video a couple days ago, and it was of the actor Taye Diggs. And the people who I'm talking to, the audience for this channel, probably know Taye Diggs, the actor. Among other things, he played in one of my favorite movies, which is How Stella Got Her Groove, right? So he did a video with his sister. And this video gave me hope. It really gave me hope because I didn't know. Maybe you all already do this, but Taye Diggs' sister, he has a younger sister. She's 5 years younger than him, and she has been diagnosed with schizophrenia. And they were on this video together, and I really found it hopeful because not only is she, addressing her diagnosis. Taye talked about how when all this stuff first started happening, he was confused. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what to do. And as the big brother, he was trying to step in and take over and, do this and do that. But again, like I said, at the end of the day, it has to be the person with the illness that has to agree to a treatment plan. And it was so encouraging to see his sister, who is not only taking medication, they didn't mention what kind of medication she's taking, but she also is going to therapy. And so she talked during the video, and she just like her brother, she has a beautiful smile, and she just she was talking about her life goals and what she wants to do, and she has a a job, and I think she might be like an entrepreneur, something to do with like carpentry or whatnot. But it was just so encouraging to see that therapy, along with medication, is helping her. And I think a two-pronged approach like that seems like a great idea. So speaking of which, and I am going to get to the topic of the mental institutions, but I just wanted to say, in previous years, I have tried to get therapy for my son. And the discouraging thing for in my situation has been when you tell a therapist that the loved one has schizophrenia, a lot of them don't even think, and this is the therapist talking. They don't even think that therapy works for schizophrenia. They really believe that medication is the only solution. That for someone with schizophrenia, that therapy is pointless. But some people do get therapy, and Tay Diggs' sister is doing therapy and medication, and that is working for her. So it was just so, like I said, so encouraging and hopeful to see somebody with this illness living a normal life. And that is what I want more than anything for my loved one. So a lot of people that have mental illnesses, they also suffer from anosognosia, which is a neurological issue that causes them to be in denial about their illness. And so on Tuesday, my loved one had an appointment. I thought he had to go. I thought he was going up to the community health center to get his monthly dose of the medication that he takes by injection. And he said, no, this is a Zoom call. And he said, it's just, I'm talking with the therapist. And so for a brief second, I got excited because I was like, oh, you're talking to the therapist. And I said, well, what do you guys talk about? Or something to that effect, because I don't like to be too invasive. And he basically said, we don't really talk about anything. Literally, it's quick. The therapist asked him, is the medication still working? How do you feel? And as long as the medication is working and he says yes, then they're off the call. It's over. That is the end of it. So there's no real therapy going on there, unfortunately. So on to what used to be called insane asylums. I guess the politically correct terms for that today would be mental health institution. So before the election, our current president mentioned reopening asylums. And at first thought, that sounds appalling because I've never heard anything good about the insane asylums or mental institutions that were end up being closed back in the maybe let me get this right because I did do some research on this topic, but they were closed down decades ago because of all the abuse that was going on. So a lot of the abuse that was going on included people being committed to asylums, not because they were actually, not because they actually had a mental health issue, but they were being committed maybe because a wife disobeyed her husband, or maybe the husband just, really wanted a divorce, so he had his wife committed, and then he could move on to someone else. Kids were also being put in mental institutions, even though they may not, whatever their issue was more physical rather than mental. And even something like Down syndrome, which is a mental health challenge, is not a mental illness, but kids were being put there. There was a lot of eugenics going on. Black people, poor people were being put in mental institutions, not because they actually had mental health issues, just because they were black and poor. These people were being used for, you may as well call it slave labor. People were being put there because they may be gay. There was a lot of experimentation going on. And these experiments on people's brains was being done. They were being done, and they weren't even being given anesthesia. People were being sterilized. So just about, and of course, it goes without saying, every imaginable horrific thing that you can imagine was going on. So needless to say, there was a lot of sexual abuse being going on there too. So that is what mental institutions or insane asylums look back, and they were eventually closed down. And now we're in a situation where we're on the opposite end of the spectrum. Initially, you had this extreme situation where people who weren't even sick were being thrown into mental institutions, and now people who have mental illness, they're hardly getting any help at all, and they have the right to refuse medication. And because of that, what are we seeing? A lot of people with mental health issues, they're being thrown in jail. Jails are being used the same way mental institutions were being used in the past. And if people with mental health issues are not in jail, then a lot of them are homeless in the street. And some of them are living with their family members, and then their family members are, there's a whole lot of chaos in the home because of the situation. So you have the extreme opposite, where people are just not getting any help, and they can refuse help if they want to. But obviously, people with mental health issues, if they are in the throes of psychosis, they're not going to have the mental capacity to stop and say, hey, you know what, I think I need treatment. They're not going to have the mental capacity to make an appointment with the doctor. And on top of that, again, as I mentioned in other videos, a lot of people with mental health issues have anosognosia, and they don't even think that they have a mental health issue. But what if mental health institutions were reopened and they had a completely different vibe, and that we spent taxpayers' money, actually put money into these institutions and provided care for people, at least on a temporary basis, whether they wanted to get or agreed that they needed treatment or not? What if, and this and not something that's going to be done just all willy-nilly, so you remove the likelihood of there being situations where somebody just wants to get a divorce, or they're angry with somebody, or they have a child that they really don't want to take care of because of issues not related to their mental health. What if you remove all that and people are put in mental health institutions, at least temporarily, and they got the help that they needed, whether they wanted it or not? There is a clinic, and I'm going to talk about this on in a different video. It's called the Amen Clinic, and I first heard about this clinic through our church. And I know some of you might be thinking, Amen Clinic, she's there. Is it due to religion? I'm not. I did hear about it in my church, and I did mention it to my son. But we weren't having a face-to-face conversation when I mentioned this, and so soon, this year, my son is going to be off probation, and so at some point, while he's still medicated, I am going to have a talk with him, and I'm going to ask him, what is going to be your health plan? What's going to be your plan for mental health care when you're no longer on probation? And the Amen Institution is one thing that I'm going to mention, and I have some other ideas in mind as well. But I am, if you go to the Amen Clinic, their webpage, they talk about all the things that all the services they offer there. And the services they do offer, they seem like what? And I'm not endorsing this because I haven't tried it. I just heard about it through my church. We had a speaker, and I was really impressed with the speaker because she had been diagnosed with bipolar, and she was not living her best life medicated with this diagnosis. But then she somehow found out about the Amen Clinic, and now she is married with kids and she is living her best life. So I was impressed with her. And if you go to their webpage and see the services they offer, it to me looks like what mental health care should look like, because they are like doing maybe an MRI of the brain. They're looking at the person's brain, and then they're trying to get to the bottom of what is really going on with the person and make sure they have an accurate diagnosis, and then they're being treated. Looking at the accurate diagnosis, and then they're being treated accordingly. So what if mental health institutions were ran like that, where they're really putting in the work, trying to figure out what is wrong with the person, is the diagnosis accurate, and then how can we treat it? And then also, I think from my research, what I understand, that an illness that involves psychosis will most likely have to be treated with medication, but also with therapy. What if mental health institutions were ran properly without all the abuse, and if they were funded properly? Is that an option? I don't know. Like I said, I'm trying to figure this out. But what do you all think? If you have any ideas about this topic, please put them in the comment, because I'm interested in learning what other people have to say. So in the meantime, thank you all for tuning in. And if you like my videos, please like and subscribe, because I'm trying to get this channel rolling here so we can have some real in-depth conversations about this topic of mental health, mental wellness. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.